you check the children? Show a little mad sometimes.
Hi, I'm Chucky. Wanna play?
Sometimes. That is what
You're gonna need a bigger boat.
Hey everyone, welcome to the horror show. I'm Cecil Laird. I gotta talk about spoilers though. I absolutely gotta talk about spoilers. So here we go. Big time spoiler warning. Boop, 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 boop. Spoilers incoming. Oh, this movie, you guys. This movie was nostalgia on steroids, quite frankly. So getting into the spoiler talk in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Everyone came back. Everyone, and I mean everyone, came back. People that could not physically come back, came back. Oh my God, the movie was so good. So, okay, the movie starts off with someone, an older person, running with a trap, and he's got a big setup on a farm where he's essentially created this grid or whatever, this thing that he's trying to capture some entity on, and they keep him in shadows the entire time. You see he's got gray hair, but he's got the technology, and he's got a big trap set up on his dirt farm, because he's on a farm where there's nothing growing but dirt. And so it turns out this is Egon. This is old Egon. They just keep his face in shadows. And so I'm like, okay, they got an actor to portray Egon, and well and good. But all right, it brought me into the story, right? And so what happens is this thing is like stomping on the farm, and Egon's trap fails. And so whatever his design was, the big electric boxes, they short out, and he's forced to run back inside. And he runs back inside, and it's just in time for this smoke to billow in, and this big version of like the dog creature like almost attacks him from behind, and then kind of drifts up, and then he's in a chair, and the hands reach up a la Ghostbusters 1, Sigourney Weaver. They grab him, and then he like screams, and we cut to outside of it, and a glowing orb shoots out of the home and into the sky, and then we cut back and we see the dead hand of Egon. And then we cut to Phoebe's family, right? Phoebe, Finn Wolfhard, and their mom, who is struggling financially. She's literally getting evicted from their home as she finds out that her dad, who basically her entire life, she's been estranged from this guy, and she's inherited something from him. And so it just so happens she's evicted at the same time. So she goes to this property that she's apparently inherited, and Janine shows up. Janine is the one who is the realtor handling, or at least the person handling Egon's last will and testament, right? She's the one that basically, the mom asks, is there anything, we're here to sell the home, sell the silverware, and get a rent check. And Janine's like, oh, well, there's really nothing worth, does sentimental money count to you? That kind of thing. So there's nothing to be had, but they have nowhere else to go. So this family is now developing their lives in this rural part of Nebraska, again, if I'm not mistaken. And his granddaughter, Phoebe, is very nerdy, just like him. And she meets this kid podcast, and Finn Wolfhard falls in love with this girl working at basically a Sonic, and starts working there and develops this relationship. And what happens is Phoebe finds a trap in the home, and that is a trap that you see Egon put away at the beginning of the movie. She pulls the trap out, and her and Podcast have it at school when Paul Rudd's character, Gary the summer school teacher, sees it and is like, oh, it's a trap. And they go, and he connects it to the battery of a school bus in the school parking lot. You see this in the trailer. And they open the shit, and it releases a ghost, one of the dog demon ghosts. And it flies off, and it goes into this spot in the mountains that have these big carvings that have been closed for years, that apparently Egon, or the dirt farmer, as the whole town knows him, was studying. And it is apparently the next birthplace of Gozer the Gozerian. Yes, you see in the trailer a white arm crawl up ahead of a pompadour sort of haircut, and it is Gozer the Gozerian. They bring back not only the two devil dogs, not only do they make a new gatekeeper and keymaster in Paul Rudd and the mom, but Gozer comes back and ascends her throne once again and is distracted once again. And my big gripe with the movie is there's no Stay Puft Marshmallow Man moment. They kind of skip over that. The Stay Puft Marshmallow Men are the little things that cause trouble here and there, but there's no big moment. It never really reaches as big a crescendo as the first movie, but we'll get there. Anyway, there's earthquakes in this area all the time, daily, and they find out that Egon has set up this whole trap in this area in the mountains where Gozer and the ghosts constantly try and escape, but he sets up 4 different particle beams that crush it down every single day, and that's what the earthquakes are. And basically what happens is once Paul Rudd gets inhabited by the Keymaster dog, that scene you see in Walmart where he gets chased, it's immediately after that. He gets caught by the dog and he becomes the Keymaster. And then the mom gets caught by a dog in the moment I talked about that is the Neverending Story homage. You see this dark hole in the wall that she's looking at, and then you see these red eyes appear, and the dog jumps from the darkness, and it's the jump scare right at the camera, just like Neverending Story and the Gamorrean. And Atreyu says, "Come for me, Gamorrean, I am Atreyu," and he launches out of the thing. It's that. Except it's with a Ghostbusters dog. So she becomes the gatekeeper. And so they release Gozer while the kids are still kind of figuring out what's going on. Finn Wolfhard repairs the Ecto-1 with some guidance. And Phoebe finds all of Egon's gear in his secret labs with some guidance. It turns out it's Egon's ghost guiding her the whole way. She talks to him. You never see him, of course. A light moves and directs her different ways to show her how things go. So Egon's ghost is guiding her to try and help them stop this thing that... So it turns out that he separated himself from the Ghostbusters years ago because he caught wind of this big apocalyptic thing coming and they didn't believe him. And so you see this moment in the trailer when a red phone rings and an arm reaches for it. That is indeed Dan Aykroyd's arm. So Dan Aykroyd is in this. Can't wait to tell you guys. Okay, so he answers the phone at one time, and it's her. It's Phoebe calling, getting some information, and she mentions that she's Egon's granddaughter just before the phone is hung up. That was a really great conversation. I want to save some stuff for you guys, but it's a great conversation between them. You find out why the Ghostbusters disbanded, why everyone forgot about ghosts, kind of forgot about ghosts. Everyone knows about the Manhattan ghost incident. They kind of sidestep Ghostbusters 2 a little bit too. They only talk about the one big event in 1984. So the kids learn how to use the gear, they learn how to capture ghosts, and they find out what's going on, so they know they have to go stop Gozer. And they go, and they see all of this happen. They see just like in the first Ghostbusters movie, they see Paul Rudd and their mom like do all this stuff and transform into the dogs, just like in the first Ghostbusters movie. And this is why my big gripe for the movie is I think the nostalgia was so strong with this that it was too much like Ghostbusters 1. It was too predictable because it was so much like Ghostbusters 1. They even have the moment where the mom is in the chair going, "There is no mom, only Zool." And like her eyes are all red and shit like that. So that was cool. Again, another throwback. Oh my God, there's a throwback. The post-credit scenes, guys. There's a mid-credit scene and a post-credit scene. We'll get to it. But the kids get there and basically they use this remote control car trap that you see in the trailer, and the podcast kid guides the car underneath one of the dogs and Gozer and triggers it while Phoebe distracts Gozer with jokes. That's when it gets too family for me. Like, they kind of lost me a little bit because she literally gets in front of Gozer and tells like 3 different jokes, and Gozer just stands up and is like, "Are you here to sacrifice yourself?" Which is cool. She looks exactly like the Gozer from the first movie, sounds exactly like the Gozer from the first movie. So that was all, again, nostalgia bomb all over your face, neck, and chest. But they trigger the trap, and it sucks part of Gozer and the dog spirit from their mom into the trap. And so their mom is now available, and like they rescue her and jump into the Ecto-1 and they take off while Gozer is still recovering, but only part Gozer now plus the one other dog. And so they drive all the way back to the farm where Phoebe has figured out that the entire farm was a giant set of ghost traps. And so they get back there and they prepare, and Gozer, the half Gozer that's like fading in and out, it starts, lumbering onto the farm, and they try and trigger the trap, and they have the same issue that Egon did years ago where the things overblow and they're not able to trigger the trap. But then, Finn Wolfhard is trying to help. They all put on the Ghostbusters outfits. Finn's love interest puts on a Ghostbusters outfit. Finn puts on a Ghostbusters outfit. Podcast puts on a Ghostbusters outfit, and Phoebe puts on a Ghostbusters outfit. And basically, Finn's trying to help, but the gear doesn't work because the Stay Puft Marshmallow little guys are screwing up, like they're being gremlins and screwing up all the gear. So Podcast has to help that. The love interest of Finn Wolfhard tries to help and tries to shoot Gozer, but then Gozer basically wraps her arm around the particle beam and yanks her like it's a rope, yanks her out, and then uses her powers to turn her into the new gatekeeper instead of the mom. So she becomes the new dog. So now Gozer has the two dogs, and they also get the trap back, and she busts the trap open and gets her full form back. So now it's Gozer and the two dogs versus the kids, and the kids are basically getting manhandled. But what happens is then all of a sudden you hear a familiar voice, and you look over and you see, oh my God, dude, I might cry at some of this because it was so effective. So you look over and you see Dan Aykroyd, Bill Murray, and Ernie Hudson geared up in the Ghostbusters gear with their proton packs, and they step on and they're like, hey, Gozer, remember us? And they each have a moment where they first show up and Dan Aykroyd reads this list of statutes that she's violated once again. And they're just, and Ernie Hudson and Bill Murray are just listening, and Bill Murray's like, and then Dan Aykroyd finishes and Venkman's like, good job. Yeah, way to go. And then, of course, they end up shooting their particle beams at Gozer, and then they cross the streams on purpose, and then Gozer reaches down and uncrosses the streams and whips the guys and knocks them all back and knocks them all their, let's face it, kind of old asses down against the Ecto-1 and knock them down. And Gozer is about to come and attack them, and all of a sudden she's shot by another particle beam from behind, and it's Phoebe, and Gozer turns and starts, firing her electricity a la the Emperor from Star Wars, and is like firing the electricity, and Phoebe's electricity is going back, and you see them clash like the Harry Potter wand battle in the 7th movie, or the 8th movie, I guess, and it just clashes, and it's fighting, and you see that Gozer starts to win, but all of a sudden, Phoebe's particle beam starts to starts to fight back, and then it cuts to Phoebe, and it starts on the particle beam that she's holding, and you see that there's ghostly hands holding the particle beam with her, and it shows the ghostly form of Egon. Full reveal. I don't know what technology they used, whether it was a deep fake or not, but they show a old bearded Egon as a ghost holding the particle beam with her, so he's fighting Gozer with her. And dude, it was so fulfilling to see. And then the original Ghostbusters stand back up and they turn their stuff back on, and they actually look over and see him, and they're like, it's this wonderful, wonderful moment. And then the other kids turn their beams on, and basically they all work together, and Finn realizes he turns and fires his particle beam at the big silos that kept shorting out, and charges the silos, and it lets all of the traps turn on, and it captures the two dog spirits and Gozer once and for all. This is the one plot hole in the movie, because technically this part of the farm is covered in traps, and so it should have captured Egon's spirit too, but it didn't. And so it captures Gozer and the two dogs. The dogs shrink up into their crusty shells like in the first movie, and that's that. And then you see them pull the head off one, and it's Paul Rudd, and then Finn Wolfhard runs over and digs into the other, and it's his love interest, and so he pulls them out, and they all get to see Egon say goodbye to Phoebe, and then he sees his daughter, who this entire movie, again, the conflict I didn't think they'd be able to resolve was the conflict. His daughter hated him the entire movie. Like, my dad was worthless. He ignored me. He left me behind. And then at one point in the movie, she gets drawn down into one of Egon's hidden labs by his spirit, and the light that he uses shows her on the wall that he's gotten pictures and he's followed her entire life. The whole reason he was here is because he was trying to prepare to save the world. He just couldn't, he couldn't let her know. And so all of these pictures, he's been following her forever. And so she sees his ghost at the end and is able to go up and actually give him a hug. Because again, in the Ghostbusters universe, like Slimer and the other ones, they have physical form when they want. And so he hugs her, and she's hugging him and crying, and then the other Ghostbusters see him, and, you know, they give their nods, and then he fades into particles and goes up into heaven, into the skies, into the stars. They don't do the heaven thing. That goes into the stars because he was a scientist. He was a physicist. And so he returns into the universal energy, and it was gorgeous, and it was a wonderful end. Even though the movie was so much like one in a lot of ways, it was such a wonderful ending to the movie, and I adored it. And so, you know, everyone kind of resolves, and it turns out that Ernie Hudson, in the meantime, has made a ton of money. After the Ghostbusters disbanded, he went on to do stuff and earn a ton of money. Dan Aykroyd went on to open an occult bookstore, and Bill Murray went back into education. It shows Janine talking to Winston at the end of the movie, where he basically says, you know, I might have done all this stuff, but I'm a Ghostbuster at heart. And it shows that he goes and he rebought the firehouse in New York, and he opens the doors and he brings in the rundown Ecto-1 and he puts his hand on it, you know, and basically saying, I'm going to get you cleaned up, dear, don't worry about it. So I think this was a very successful, literal passing of the torch from the original Ghostbusters to the new Ghostbusters, but they're going to keep the old Ghostbusters in as needed, as, you know, consultants and characters to come in when makes sense. But they passed it on to Paul Rudd, and now Phoebe and Finn Wolfhard's character and their mom. They set up the universe so well. It is obviously they can make so many more of these, and it's only going to get more and more enjoyable as we go along. I think they set up a whole new sort of return to the continuity, and I absolutely loved it. Now, there were two credit scenes, one mid-credit scene and one post-credit scene. So the mid-credit scene, once you get to it, it goes to Venkman, and someone is holding up a card with the wavy lines, and he's like, 2, 3 wavy lines, and it shows that the person he's talking to is Sigourney Weaver. So it's him and her, and she keeps holding up cards. He keeps getting it right, but she keeps shocking him with the machine. And she's like, I can't believe you used to do this. He's like, well, to be fair, I would only shock the men. And then she shocks him again. And so it's just this little back and forth where they're apparently either still together or still friendly and whatever. And they're just doing the psychic thing from the very first Ghostbusters movie. So I didn't even realize it, but the post-credit scene was that scene I was talking about with Janine and Winston. And it shows him bringing in the Ecto-1. And then it actually shows the very old battery in the basement of that building, and it shows the red light is blinking on the old containment unit, and that's how the movie ends. So I know I just walked out of the movie, but I'm pretty sure that was the post credit scene. Anyway, guys, this movie was so enjoyable. If you've watched all the way to this point, thank you very much for watching. If you enjoyed the video, click the like button and subscribe. I'm going to try and talk spoilers with everyone else at some point this week if I can, but I wanted to at least get my thoughts on the spoilers out, because, God, you see how many spoilers there are to talk about in this movie? God damn, there were a lot of spoilers. But anyway, thank you to all of our patrons for supporting the channel the way that you do. We greatly appreciate it. Until next time, I've been Cecil Laird, and remember, stay scared.